What's up guys, VenomousStare here, and today we're going to do a first-person VOD. We're going to watch from my point of view, and we're going to talk about Zerg versus Protoss, specifically aggressive immortal pushes. Now I know that a lot of Zergs have trouble with this, and there's a lot of variations on builds like this. Protoss players can do lots of things. They can do Blink with Immortals, they can do Immortal Sentry, they can do Immortal Warp Prism with gateway units. There's lots of little variations, but the thing that stays consistent is the fact that there's a push off of two bases and there's Immortals involved. So I'm going to talk about how I deal with this, and hopefully you don't lose to Immortal builds anymore. So I went Hatchery first. If you can get away with this against Protoss, you should try to do it. Obviously the risk is cannon rushing. After that I elected to make a spawning pool and a gas immediately. I used my first 100 gas to get Zergling speed, and I'm going to use my next 100 gas to get a lair. I made an extra queen at my natural and laid 2 tumors down initially, meaning that my creep spread will start very quickly. As soon as my Overlord got to their base, the second one mind you, I start to scout around. Now one thing that I would like to mention is that whenever you scout on this map, there's a very high probability your opponent's tech will be at the natural. So normally I might have used that Overlord to look behind my opponent's mineral line, but the choke on this map is so big that a lot of times the Protoss will just put their Stargate or Robo or whatever it is, or Twilight even, at their natural. One of the most important parts of identifying how to beat Immortals is to identify that it's Immortals. Notice my early Roach Warren, that's just for safety. That kind of counters a lot of early things Protoss can do. Also notice I've taken a considerably early third. Maybe not considerably early, that might be a stretch. Relatively early layer as well. Remember we used our second 100 gas on that, first 100 on link speed. I scout the double robo, quintessential. Notice how immediately I put down a spire. This is the linchpin in your strategy. An immediate spire is the reaction to heavy early robo play. Roaches get hard countered by Immortals, and I think that fighting an Immortal based all-in with Roach Ling is not a good idea, because the Protoss units will often just be able to overpower you. They're just better at fighting in clumps. That's how the game works. So my idea here is to go Spire, and knowing that he went double Robo means that it means that he's going to be going very Immortal heavy, as opposed to Gateway heavy with Immortals. Now I know a lot of new players might not understand and think that I'm splitting hairs, but I'll explain. So whenever a Protoss elects to all-in you, there's a lot of things they can elect to do. They can decide whether they're going to do it with upgrades, how many gateways they're going to do it with, and what tech structure they're going to do it with. This Protoss chose an abnormal build. He chose, notice how I'm creep dropping his third, he chose to go 2 Robo, which meant that he would be dedicating a lot to Immortals. He's also going heavy Adept, which Adepts destroy Zerglings, so if I were to pump Roach Ling this game, I would have been eviscerated. I see his army and know that my Spire just finished and I don't have time to defend, so I'm going to immediately abandon my third, evacuate the drones, and start to build spines in my main. At this moment I've identified his army composition. Remember, I already saw the double Robo, so I knew it would be extremely Immortal heavy. So I need to commit heavy to Mutalisk because he does not have many units that shoot up. He does not think I'm going to go Mutalisk this early. He's built his entire composition around countering Roach Ling, because Adepts destroy Lings and Immortals destroy Roaches. So at this point my opponent sees that I have Mutas and he does not have a Mothership Core to recall, so he's forced to push. I focused on the Stalkers immediately because I don't want to take any damage to my Mutalisk, despite the fact that Immortals deal more ground damage. After I kill all the units that shoot up, I start to take on the powerful Immortals, which deal significant damage to buildings. Notice how I retake my third before I even defend the push. Whenever your opponent is locked in and just myopically focused on destroying a certain base, you can just take bases for free and they will never do anything about it. They're just locked into destroying that one base. And that's one thing that you can almost always count on, especially in lower leagues. I also didn't creep up with my creep spread as well as I should have. However, it was very difficult to micro and do that creep. This is another great advantage of this is another great advantage of Overlord spreading your opponent's third base. You know when they go out to take it. Oftentimes you catch units out. Frozen Fields is a fairly open third. That means that in order to do that move, he put himself in a vulnerable position and I was able to capitalize. That's one reason I like Muta styles, is because oftentimes Roach styles will just be too slow. Whenever you're playing Muta styles and your opponent warps in units, you should always focus the units, because in Legacy of the Void, warping in units take extra damage, which is not how it was in previous iterations of the game. This is Blizzard's unique little way of nerfing the Protoss Defender's advantage, and I guess Aggressor's advantage more so because of Warp Gate, but I think the change is good. I always thought Warp Gate was very strong, and I think that the change is good. So whenever you have this many Mutalisks, 15, and you're upgrading, which I am no, I'm not upgrading, that's a mistake, I should be. But whenever you have more Mutalisks than he has Stalkers, and he doesn't have supporting units like Phoenix, you can just overwhelm your opponent with Mutas. It feels bizarre, but you can do it. Float a bit of money there at the end. I kind of knew I was going to win, but I went out to take 2 additional bases to try to correct that. Should have made a macro hatch as well. If you enjoyed it, subscribe. It's free.